Most people over 65 are told the same thing when they mention stiff, heavy legs. Just sit down and rest. It sounds sensible. It sounds safe. But here is what nobody tells you. Resting those legs all day does not protect your independence. It quietly chips away at it. Every hour you spend seated without moving, the large muscles in your thighs and calves get a little quieter, a little weaker, a little slower to answer when you finally ask them to stand. And this is not a small problem. Falls are the leading cause of injury among adults 65 and older, and weak legs are one of the biggest reasons behind them. The good news is just as clear. Health organizations that study this, including the Centers for Disease Control and the National Health Service, agree that seated movement can rebuild real strength in older adults, even for people who cannot stand for long. This is not wishful thinking. It is one of the most studied and most accessible forms of exercise there is. So here is what I am going to give you today. 5 chair-based movements that keep your legs active, strong, and ready, done entirely from a seat you already own. And the number one movement on this list is the one almost nobody talks about. Stay with me until the end, because that one movement trains the exact thing your legs do every time you stand up from a chair, a car, or the edge of your bed. Let me be honest about why you probably have not heard this clearly before. A typical appointment with a doctor runs about 12 minutes. In 12 minutes, there is time to check your blood pressure, review your medications, and send you on your way. There is almost no time for the slow, unglamorous work of prevention. Nobody sits with you and shows you how to keep your legs working for the next 10 years. That gap is not your fault. It is simply how the system is built. I want to be straight with you about what this channel is. I am not a doctor, and this is not a diagnosis. I am not here to sell you a supplement or scare you into anything. This channel exists to gather the well-established science that a short appointment never has time to cover and hand it to you in plain language. Everything here comes from published guidance and research, not from opinion. And the stakes are worth being clear about. This is not really about exercise for its own sake. It is about getting off the toilet without help, rising from a low car seat in a parking lot, climbing 3 steps to your front door with groceries in your arms. These are the small moments where independence is either kept or lost. Strong legs are what keep those moments yours. If you are over 65 and you sit for most of the day, this video was made for you. Tell me in the comments where you are watching from and how many hours a day you spend sitting. I read them, and your answers shape what I cover next. Now, before we count down, I need you to understand one simple mechanism. Please do not skip this part. It is the key to everything that follows. Muscle works on a rule scientists sometimes call use it or lose it. Think of your leg muscles like a garden path. Walk it every day, and it stays clear and open. Stop using it, and within weeks the weeds move in and the path fades. Age-related muscle loss, called sarcopenia, is that path fading. It is gradual, it is quiet, and it is directly tied to losing your independence. But here's the part that matters. That path can be reopened at almost any age. The weeds are not permanent. Movement clears them, and seated movement counts. If this is already making sense to you, tap the like button so more seniors can find it. Let us begin the countdown at number 5, the seated ankle pump. This is the smallest movement on the list, and it does something the others cannot. When you sit still for hours, blood and fluid pool in your lower legs and feet. Your calf muscles are meant to be a second pump, squeezing that fluid back up toward your heart every time they contract. Sit motionless, and that pump switches off. Think of it like a bucket brigade that has stopped passing the buckets. The water just sits there. Ankle pumps switch the brigade back on. Research on seated exercise consistently shows that simple ankle and calf movement helps circulation in older adults who spend long periods sitting. It is one of the first movements physiotherapists teach after surgery for exactly this reason. Here is the protocol. Sit tall with both feet flat on the floor. Lift the toes of both feet up toward the ceiling while keeping your heels down. Then press the toes back down and lift your heels instead. That is one pump. Do this slowly, about 1 full pump every 2 seconds. Aim for 20 pumps, rest, then do 2 more rounds of 20. That is 60 pumps total, and it takes about 3 minutes. Do it every hour that you are sitting for a long stretch. The most common mistake people make is rushing. This is not about speed, it is about the squeeze, so make each one deliberate. To make this safer or easier, keep your hands resting on the arms of the chair or on your thighs so you stay steady. If you feel any sharp cramp in your calf, stop and gently stretch it. Mild tiredness is fine. Sharp pain is a signal to stop, not to push through. Pair this with something simple. Every time you do your ankle pumps, take 5 slow, deep breaths at the same time. The deep breathing helps that same fluid move upward, so the two work together better than either alone. But ankle pumps only wake up the lower leg. They do nothing for the large muscles at the front of your thigh, the ones that actually lift your body weight. And those muscles fade fastest of all. That is exactly what the next movement is built to protect. Number 4, the seated march. If ankle pumps are a gentle wake-up, the seated march is where your hip flexors and thigh muscles start doing real work. These are the muscles that lift your knee to clear a curb, a step, or the lip of a bathtub. When they weaken, people start shuffling, and shuffling is what catches a toe and causes a fall. The seated march trains the lift back into your stride. Large reviews of chair-based exercise have found that seated movements like this measurably improve lower body function in older adults. This is well established, not a fringe idea. Here is the protocol. Sit tall, away from the backrest if you can do so safely, hands resting on the sides of the chair. Lift one knee up toward the ceiling as if marching, then lower it with control. Then the other knee. That is one march on each side. Keep a slow, steady rhythm, about one knee lift per second. Do 20 lifts total, counting both legs, then rest. Do 3 rounds. As you get stronger over the weeks, add a brief pause at the top of each lift. That pause is where the real strength is built. The mistake to avoid is letting the leg drop like dead weight. Lower it slowly. The lowering matters as much as the lifting. For a safer version, hold the sides of the chair firmly and lift the knee only a few inches at first. Build the height slowly over weeks. If you feel any pinching in the front of your hip, lower the knee height and stop if it sharpens. Pair the seated march with the ankle pumps you just learned. March first to wake the muscles, then finish with a round of pumps to move the blood. Together, they cover both the big movers and the circulation in one short session. Now, marching lifts the knee, but it does not straighten it under load. And straightening the knee against resistance is a completely different skill, the one that actually powers you up out of a chair. That is what we train next. Number 3, the seated knee extension. This is the movement that targets the quadriceps directly, the large muscle on the front of your thigh. This is the single most important muscle for standing up, and it is often the first to weaken with age and sitting. Picture the quadriceps as the main cable that hauls you upright. Fray that cable and every stand becomes a struggle. Strengthen it, and standing feels light again. The connection between quadriceps strength and independence in older adults is one of the most consistent findings in exercise research. Strengthening this muscle is directly tied to a steadier walk and a lower risk of falls. Here is the protocol. Sit tall with your feet flat. Slowly straighten one leg out in front of you until it is nearly straight, toes pointing up toward the ceiling. Hold it there for 2 full seconds. You should feel the muscle on top of your thigh tighten and work. Then lower the foot back down slowly, over about 3 seconds. That slow lowering is not wasted time. It is where much of the strength is built. Do 8 to 10 repetitions on one leg, then switch. Do 2 rounds on each leg. Aim for this 2 or 3 times a week, not every day, because this muscle needs a rest day between sessions to rebuild stronger. To make it safer, rest your hands on the chair and never lock or snap the knee straight. Stop just short of fully locked. If you feel any sharp pain inside or around the kneecap, stop. A working, tired feeling in the thigh is what you want. Sharp joint pain is not. Pair the knee extension with the seated march. The march warms the muscle up with movement, then the extension loads it for strength. Warm first, then strengthen. That order protects the joint. Now, the knee extension makes your thighs strong. But strong thighs sitting in a chair are like a strong engine with no wheels touching the road. You still have to transfer that strength through your ankles and into the floor to actually rise and balance. That is the gap the next movement closes. Number 2, the seated heel and toe raise. This movement builds the calves and the small muscles around the ankle, and it is quietly one of the most important for balance. Every time you stand and sway slightly, it is your ankles making tiny corrections to keep you upright. Think of your ankles as the shock absorbers on a car. Worn absorbers make every bump feel dangerous. Strong ones keep you steady over uneven ground. Studies on fall prevention repeatedly point to ankle and calf strength as a key part of staying balanced and steady on your feet. This is not a minor detail. It is central to not falling. Here is the protocol. Sit tall with feet flat and hip width apart. First, lift both heels as high as you can while keeping your toes on the floor so you rise onto the balls of your feet. Hold for 2 seconds, then lower. That trains the calf. Next, keep your heels down and lift your toes up toward you as high as you can. Hold for 2 seconds and lower. That trains the front of the shin. Alternate between the two. Do 15 of each, rest, and complete 2 rounds. Do this daily if you like, as these smaller muscles recover quickly. The common mistake is rushing through and bouncing. Slow and controlled, with a real hold at the top, is where balance is built. For a safer version, do the movement 1 foot at a time so you can watch and control it, keeping both hands on the chair. If you feel a cramp in the calf, stop and stretch gently before continuing. Pair the heel and toe raise with your ankle pumps from number 5. The pumps get the blood moving, and the raises then build the strength on top of that warm, ready muscle. Now you have circulation, hip lift, thigh power, and ankle stability. 4 pieces. But there is one movement that ties every one of them together into the single action your legs perform more than any other in a day. That is the crown of this list, and it is next. Number 1, the most important movement on this entire list, the assisted sit to stand. This is the movement almost nobody trains on purpose, and it is the one that matters most. Think about how many times a day you stand up. From bed in the morning, from the chair at breakfast, from the toilet, from the car, from your armchair in the evening. Every single one of those is a sit to stand. It is the most repeated strength movement in your entire day, and most people never practice it deliberately until the day they suddenly cannot do it. By then, ground has already been lost. Here is why this movement is the crown. Every other movement on this list trains one piece. The ankle pump trains circulation. The march trains the hip. The knee extension trains the thigh. The heel and toe raise trains the ankle. The sit to stand is the one movement that fires all of those at the same moment, in the exact sequence and timing your body actually uses to rise. Picture an orchestra. The other 4 exercises are you tuning each instrument on its own. The sit to stand is the whole orchestra playing the piece together. That is why researchers use a simple 30-second sit to stand test as one of the clearest measures of lower body strength and independence in older adults. It tells them, better than almost anything else, how well a person can care for themselves. The evidence here is strong and consistent. The sit to stand is one of the most researched functional movements in older adults, and the ability to rise from a chair without using your hands is closely linked to living independently. Building this movement is building the physical skill of independence itself. Here is the protocol, and I want you to follow it carefully. Start seated in a sturdy chair with a firm seat, one that will not slide or roll. Place your feet flat, roughly shoulder width apart, and pull them back slightly so they sit just behind your knees. Lean your chest forward over your feet so your nose travels past your toes. That forward lean is the secret. It puts your weight over your legs instead of behind them. Now, press down through your heels and stand up, using your hands on the chair arms only as much as you truly need. Stand fully tall. Then, and this is the part most people skip, sit back down slowly, taking 3 full seconds to lower yourself with control instead of dropping. That slow lowering builds as much strength as the standing. Do 5 stands to begin with, rest, and do a second round of 5. Work toward doing it 2 or 3 times a week. As you get stronger over the weeks, use your hands a little less each time, until one day you rise using no hands at all. That day is a milestone worth celebrating. Safety matters most on this one, so here are the rules. Always use a stable chair against a wall or with a wall behind it, never a chair on wheels. Keep a sturdy table or counter in front of you to grab if you need it. If you feel dizzy as you rise, sit straight back down and rest. Never rush the standing. If you have knee or hip replacements or any condition that affects your balance, talk to your doctor before adding this and start with your hands fully supporting you. Sharp pain means stop, not push through. This is a movement you build slowly and keep for life. Pair the sit to stand with the knee extension from number 3. The extension builds the raw thigh strength, and the sit to stand teaches that strength how to work in real life. Strength first, then skill. That pairing is the whole game. And here is the payoff I promised you at the very beginning. When you train the sit to stand deliberately a few times a week, you are not just exercising. You are rehearsing the exact movement that decides whether you can live in your own home, get yourself to the bathroom at night, and rise from a fall if one ever happens. This one movement, practiced quietly in your living room, is training for the next 10 years of your independence. That is why it wears the crown. Let me show you how these 5 movements come together in a real, ordinary week, because the pieces matter less than the routine. Imagine someone in their mid-70s who has spent the last few years sitting more and moving less. Standing from the couch had started to take 2 tries. Rising from the car in a parking lot had become something to brace for. Nothing dramatic had happened yet, but the margin was thinning and they could feel it. So they started small. Ankle pumps every hour they sat, a round of seated marches and knee extensions 3 mornings a week, heel and toe raises while the kettle boiled, and 5 slow sit to stands a few times a week, chest forward, pressing through the heels. Nothing heroic. 10 to 15 minutes a day most days. Within a few weeks, the pattern that research would predict began to show up in ordinary life. Standing from the couch took 1 try instead of 2. The car seat stopped feeling like a trap. The legs answered a little faster when asked. Not because anything miraculous happened, but because the path through the garden had been walked again, and the weeds had pulled back. That is what consistent seated movement does. It is quiet, and it is real. So here is exactly what to do. Tonight, do 1 round of 20 ankle pumps before bed. This week, pick 3 mornings and do the seated march and the knee extension together. Every single day, do your heel and toe raises while you wait for something: a kettle, a microwave, a commercial break. 2 or 3 times this week, practice 5 slow sit to stands with your chest leaning forward over your feet. And starting today, set 1 gentle reminder to stand up and move every hour you are sitting. 5 steps, each one small. Together, they change everything. Think of someone in your life who sits too much and has started to move a little less surely than they used to. A parent, a partner, a friend. Send this to them. It might be the small nudge that keeps them steady and independent for years longer. Tell me in the comments which of these 5 you are starting tonight. Your answers genuinely decide what I cover next. And if this helped, subscribe, because this channel exists to give seniors the clear, honest science that a rushed appointment never has time to cover. This video is education, not a diagnosis. Your own doctor knows your history, so bring this list to your next appointment. I'm Laura Bennett. Don't forget to subscribe and live longer.